Did the Cincinnati Bengals fix their pass rush in free agency? Let's talk about the signing of edge Boye Mafe up next here on No Buts About It. What's up, everyone? My name is Josh Butts. You're watching No Buts About It. Thank you so much for stopping by our channel. Before you forget, if you could go ahead and subscribe, we do all sorts of NFL news. We've been live streaming a ton lately. We've been just doing a bunch. So if you love the NFL, you're going to love something that we do here. But today, I want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. One of their bigger signings during free agency. They said that they were going to work on the pass rush, and that was achieved through the signing of Jonathan Allen, but also through the topic of this video, Boye Mafe. And so Boye Mafe was someone who I wasn't initially, super excited about. I didn't know a ton about him. He was a little bit underwhelming, but then I started looking more into him. I got really excited the more I looked into him. So let's look at some of those stats that excited me about the edge out of Seattle. So first of all, just to give some context to these stats, the Seattle Seahawks like to run a rotation on their defensive line. And so, yes, Boye Mafe only had 2 sacks in 2025, but he was also rotating out a lot. The Seattle Seahawks actually had 3 tied sack leaders at 7 sacks. And so, really, the team as a whole, while they were getting sacks, there wasn't an individual guy who was, doing all the work. 3 players at 7. Boye Mafe had 2 this past season. In 2024, he had 6. 2023, he had 9. But really, the pressures are what excites me. So he had 40 pressures in 2025, and in 2024, he had 47. 2023 is really that golden year. That's what we're going to hope to achieve with Boye Mafe in Cincinnati. And he was 8th in pass rush win rate with around 18%. And to give some context to where that kind of ranks, how that does, Trey Hendrickson in 2024, not 2025, 2024, had around a 20% pass rush win rate. So that's really good. 18% pass rush win rate is exceptional in the NFL. And that is what the Bengals are kind of looking for their new Trey Hendrickson. That's what they're hoping Boye Mafe can be. And Trey Hendrickson, we think of him as this great pass rusher now, this elite guy, and rightfully so. But look back at Trey Hendrickson. He did not have a season over 10 sacks until 2020, his 4th season with the Saints. He was a 2017 rookie. He had 13 and a half sacks in 2020. But up to that point, 2017 through 2019, he only had 6.5 sacks total. In fact, in 2018, he had no sacks at all. So it took some time to develop Trey Hendrickson as an edge rusher into the type of guy that we, have come to know him as. And I think that we could see that upside with Boye Mafe as well. And furthermore, I think that the Cincinnati Bengals could do something similar to what the Seattle Seahawks did with Mafe. And that could be something he's already familiar with. They have invested first-round picks in this O-line. They have Shamar Stewart, another pressures guy who is going to look to turn it into, sacks this season. Myles Murphy, who had 5.5 sacks, I believe, last season. I believe he led the team. I think Joseph Asai had 5. So, that production is something that Al Golden is going to want to create. And really, last year, they had to do it with Trey Hendrickson already. Trey Hendrickson was already, hurt. He didn't really play much last season. So these guys have kind of gotten used to that. Myles Murphy finally got significant snaps as an edge rusher. And Cedric Johnson, we got him in rotation a little bit, and I'm hoping we see more of that. But Boye Mafe is the huge addition to this that I think could kind of be, that match that gets thrown on the fire. Now, of course, there were other edge rushers that we could talk about that the Bengals could have signed in free agency. How does Mafe compare to those guys? And the three that I'm looking at, or the two that I'm looking at compared to Mafe. So Jalen Phillips was kind of the pinnacle for a lot of Bengals fans. He signed a 4-year, $120 million contract. That's $30 million average. That's a lot of money to put into Jalen Phillips. And, he's athletic, rightfully so. As you can see on there, he has 28 sacks in his career. Odafe Owe also signed a 4-year deal at $100 million with a $25 million average. And then the Bengals gave Boye Mafe 3 years, $60 million. So that's $20 million. So that's the cheapest deal. However, let's look at the games. Let's look at the reliability. Yes, Mafe has the least amount of sacks of all the players. However, what we need on the D-line is someone we can trust to be out there, to trust to lead this team, trust to, be a good player who's going to be effective and that we can depend on as a team. Jalen Phillips, despite that large contract, he's missed a lot of games. He's missed 63 of 8, or only played in 63 of 85 possible games in his career. He's missed 22 games in his career. Odafe Owe, not as bad, but still not great. When you look at Boye Mafe, after that, Owe has missed 6 games in his career. And finally, Mafe has only missed 3 games. So that's a big thing for me as well, because we saw what happens when you kind of lose that one pass rusher that you have in Trey Hendrickson. So now hopefully the Bengals will be able to have some rotation, keep guys fresh, keep Shamar Stewart fresh, get him some more rushes, get Myles Murphy in there, and they can maybe they won't have the sack leader, but they will have more better, if that's a phrase, defensive linemen that are able to, rush the quarterback more effectively at a better rate, kind of like the Seattle Seahawks did. They didn't have anyone who really stood out as a pass rusher, but they were still a very effective defense when it came to rushing the passer. Something else that Boye Mafe brings to the table that Trey Hendrickson didn't is Boye Mafe is better in the run game. Trey Hendrickson, as good of a pass rusher as he is, as much respect as I have for him, is awful against the run. He did okay in 2024, but before that and after that, he's fell off. He was below average in the run. And that is not just me, saying that because he's a Raven. If you go back and look at his grades against the run, he is pretty typically, with some exceptional seasons here or there, below average in the run. And you can see that in play in the Bengals as well. Sam Hubbard in that tandem was always the better defensive end against the run. Trey Hendrickson was always the better pass rusher. Boye Mafe is more of a balanced edge. And he's super athletic. He's super quick. He just brings something to the table that isn't necessarily better, but it's different and has more potential than what Trey Hendrickson had. And so I wanted to look at Boye Mafe versus Sonny Styles. And the reason I chose Sonny Styles is because Styles is just kind of this pinnacle of athleticism right now. That's what we're kind of looking at in terms of the combine this year. So I wanted you to see how his numbers compare, even though they play different positions. So as you can see, Sonny Styles is like just the perfect all-around athlete. But let's look at the explosiveness of Boye Mafe. He had a 1.56 10-yard split. That is about unofficially the same time that Sonny Styles had. 20-yard split, 2.85. And then again, Styles was unofficial here when Math Bomb, shout out Math Bomb, made this graphic. Styles was a little bit quicker, I believe, yes. But, that's still pretty good numbers here that we're looking at. And the agility that we're seeing from Sonny Styles is exceptional. Unfortunately, we don't see that with Boye Mafe on this chart. But I just think people are underestimating how much great athleticism Boye Mafe is bringing to the table. He's a 9.91 relative athletic score. And, of course, that's not the end-all, be-all. but I think that we, are going to, be surprised by what he brings to this table. And I am excited for the Cincinnati Bengals to have brought in Boye Mafe, and I think they may have gotten him on a deal. But let me know what you think about Boye Mafe. I don't know why I put this hat back on. I took it off earlier, but let me know what you think about Boye Mafe. Are you excited for him to be a Cincinnati Bengal? Do you see what I see, or do you think this is just such a waste? Let me know down below. I'm going to try to do more player spotlight videos, both with draft prospects and free agency signings. I'm hoping to get a little bit more free time here, knock on wood. But I just wanted to get this one out here because it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. But I appreciate all of you for stopping by for the last 10 or so minutes. Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, go do something nice for someone.